Okay. Hi, I'm Alison Schwartz, and I'm really excited to be here and to tell you a little bit about me and sort of my journey and what I do as a technology lawyer. Um, so I'm a partner in the technology and outsourcing group at the law firm Loeb and Loeb, which is a large law firm. Like it's about probably over 400 lawyers now, I think, across the US and in Asia. And I've been here for about 12 years. But prior to that, I was at three other firms. So I'll kind of give you again, like my journey and progress. Um, I, as when I was younger, I was always drawn to technology and math, especially, as opposed to sort of humanities and languages. So when I was in high school, by the time I was like a junior, I was starting to think about college, not sure what I wanted to do, which I'm sure, those of you who are seniors, even, you don't have to know what you want to do right now. But I knew I wanted to do something in math and science, but I wasn't sure what. So the summer before my senior year in high school, I did this 2-week program at the University of Illinois. It was like an intro to engineering program to kind of just find out what engineering was all about because I had no idea. Um, and in that 2-week program, they touched on it. I learned a lot about sort of what it is. There's a lot of aspects and components to engineering in different fields. But I knew it was something that sounded really interesting, and at the time it was sort of one of the more popular majors, which I think it is now too. So I decided to apply and ended up as a student at University of Illinois in electrical and computer engineering. Um, and I got a great education at University of Illinois. I enjoyed the curriculum. I chose electrical engineering because of the math focus, because that was sort of what my main interest was. Um, and it definitely was math focused, and I really did well and enjoyed it. But kind of by my junior year, I was realizing I was not didn't know if I wanted to actually be an engineer. I kind of liked the theory and the math of it, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to sort of actually, you know, be, at a desk and designing circuits for the rest of my life. So I decided I wanted to be a little bit more rounded. So my senior year in college, I took this class. It was engineering and business, and we had like a seminar or a lecturer that came in, talked to us about something called patent law and intellectual property law, which I knew nothing about. But for those of you that don't know, patent law is basically the area of law that allows inventors to protect their proprietary and novel inventions. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I thought it was really interesting. I was like, well, I could, use my engineering background, but also go to law school and kind of get more of that humanities spin to my background. So I went to law school and didn't love law school because, again, it was a lot of reading and writing, which is not what I was good at or used to. But every summer in law school, I worked as a clerk at a patent law firm, and I really liked the practice of law. So I stuck it out in law school and ended up, working at this after law school, working at this boutique patent litigation law firm, and basically spent 3 years litigating patents and helping clients protect their patents and help them bring claims against their competitors for infringing their patents. So fast forward, here I am. I started at Loeb 12 years ago, and for the first about 8 or 9 years of my career, I kind of jumped from firm to firm. I was at 3 different firms. Didn't know why I wasn't really loving it, but I think I was thinking it was the firm, and so I'd like move from firm to firm. Anyway, here I am at Loeb. was working as a patent attorney, and then um, our area started getting a little slower, and so I helped out the technology transactions group. I kind of helped support them on their deals. And basically, when I refer to technology transactions, I'm talking about contracts that are sort of technology driven. So software license agreements, development agreements, joint ventures, uh, things along those lines. Anything that was technology related, I helped out on those transactions. And the more I started doing that, the more I realized I really just didn't have a passion for patent law. I mean, it's a great area of law, but it wasn't for me. And I realized that, wow, I really like doing these technology transactions. So I've been doing that now for about 8 years at Loeb, and really, we get into some really complex, interesting deals that I think one thing I like about it is really that I get to understand my clients' businesses and really work on these transactions and draft and negotiate a contract that helps them to really meet their business goals. And so I just like being able to kind of help on the business side of it, and consult not only on the legal issues but also on the commercial issues. So that is a little bit about me. I don't know if anyone has any questions on my background. I'm happy to field questions. Otherwise, I mean, I can get into a little bit more detail on what it is I do, and also just the various the different intersections between law and technology, because it's not just technology transactions and it's not just IP. There's so many other things that people don't even realize, that legal kind of needs to be involved with.
So anyone can unmute yourselves. Feel free or drop questions in the chat. But I'd like to hear more about these transactions. I'm curious what they are, and tell me like past transactions, like what companies you work with, like your clients and etc.
Sure. Okay. So let's see. I put together a few slides, so I can start talking about also like about some of the specific transactions. But I just wanted to also give you guys a little bit of background, and if I can share my screen, about sort of generally like law and technology, and then I can go into some details. So
Yeah, I think you do have
You
permission.
should be able to, but if not, we can make it
okay,
happen.
there we go. Okay. Is it showing?
Yes, you're perfect. All good.
Okay. Okay. So this basically I just threw this together to show you that there really are so many different intersections. If you're interested in law and technology, you don't have to pick one. There's so many different areas. I talked a little bit about IP, which is where I started, intellectual property. We call it IP. And right now there's a really big kind of focus and interest in artificial intelligence, which I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about too, because I think some of it's really interesting. And let's see. So there's different areas. There's big data. I don't know if you all have heard that term, but big data is really big right now, obviously. There's, I think, majors now in college for data analytics and information sciences. And that's basically just taking huge data sets and using them for, analytics and different purposes to help drive business and revenues and various things. IoT, you might have heard of. That's the internet. That's the Internet of Technology, and that, Internet of Things, and that is basically anything. It's talking about like anything that is internet connected. So any wearable technology, your Apple Watch, smart homes, things that help control the lights, things like that. Sorry about my dog. There's ad tech, that's basically advertising technology that is basically any technology used to help agencies and brands kind of target people. So if you're on the internet and you're doing searches and you see that all of a sudden in different websites, you're seeing pop-ups for things that you've already searched for before, that's ad technology. And then financial technology or fintech, that's like Venmo and Chase Pay or Zelle, those kinds of technologies. So that's that. I'm going to stop sharing for now. I just want to give that little bit of background. And so to answer, Sydney, to answer your question. So some of the clients that I currently do a lot of work for, there are some I can name, some I can't, but one client I do a lot of work for is TJX, which is the parent company that owns TJ Maxx, Home Goods, Marshalls, Sierra Trading. So that's a really fun client to work for. One of the cool deals that I did there was to help them get one of their brands' e-commerce website set up. So they never, when I started working with them, had any kind of e-commerce website. So it was really cool to. It's called a logistics deal. So they basically hired somebody to come in and help them with all of the logistics. So from, the contract is so detailed. It says like, okay, you as the service provider have to help us, pull the merchandise. You have to wrap it. You have to pack it. You have to ship it. You have to be there to, answer customer service questions. So they're really broad, service contracts. But it was kind of cool. It was like a year long before we finally got the contract done. And then I can remember when they went live and I first ordered something on their website and I ended up not wanting it. So I returned it to the store and they weren't quite, they hadn't worked out all the kinks yet. So when I went and returned it to the store, it was like a $20 sweater or something. I ended up, the checkout said that they were going to refund me like $750. I was like, I don't think that's right. So anyway, so that was fun. On the patent side and the IP side, some of the cool things I have done. I don't know, you guys might be too young, but I did a lot of work with Salton, which is a home appliances company, and they were sort of famous for the George Foreman grill, which I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's like a kitchen. Okay, so if you look up in the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office website on their database and search up like Salton, you'll probably see 20 patent applications or registered patents on the George Foreman grill. So I did a lot of that. They also manufactured toasters and sold toasters, and I can remember being 8 months pregnant with my first child, who some of you may know. And I was sitting in a conference room with like piles and piles of toasters with a colleague of mine, and like, I think we were in Columbus or something, taking toasters apart and looking to see if they infringe this little tiny minute detail of a patent for a patent infringement lawsuit we were working on. So that was kind of a funny memory. Let's see. I also I do some work for a major. I don't know if I can disclose this, but it's like a major global beverage manufacturer. So when I go to their offices, it's kind of fun because they have, their kitchen is stocked with like not only the well-known beverages that they sell, but even sort of the rare ones, and so that's always kind of fun. So let's see. It's I guess, I mean, I don't know how much of the nitty gritty detail you want to hear about these deals, but if you go to a website or download an app and you see terms of use, you normally never read them, right? You just click through, you say, okay, I agree. So those are all technology related because it's a technology interface, obviously, when you're downloading these apps or using them in the cloud. So we draft those agreements for our clients. And anything that you can imagine that's technology related, we kind of do that. So I don't know, do you have any other questions on that?
So you were talking about with TJAX and how you went to like the cash register and it was like they're
Mhm.
giving you was that part of your company? Like I know you make like the agreements and all, like let's say
Mhm.
like online. Do you like do the development of like the online presence?
So it's a really good question. So the vendor that TJX had hired to do the whole process, it's called an outsourcing because it's a business process. It's their whole business, and they turn it over to another company to do it for them because they're the experts, and so they hire them to do it since they have the expertise. So part of this deal included implementation of the whole solution, and it included development of the website. So they help the client develop the website. And there's something in these agreements called performance metrics. So they're specific like objectives that the vendors have to meet. So one of them might be um, like the timing for shipping ordered, products. So they have to say it might say like 99% of the time you need to send it within 2 days of it being ordered. I mean, it's very, very detailed. And I think that's one thing I like about it because it does, you know, give you a different perspective of these of how things like Amazon work. I mean, for us, it's like we order something on Amazon, it says ship next day or 2 days, and you get it and it appears at your door. But the logistics and details that go into getting it from place A to place B are incredible. Like it's just very complicated. So
And I know you work with Loeb, you said that. So do they just do patenting or like I know for example like Apple, they probably have like a team of lawyers and it's not outsourced, but do when they hire you to like write like the user agreements, do they also hire your firm as like their legal help or do they outsource that somewhere else?
So a lot of these companies do have their own legal teams. So, and that's actually a really good question too, in terms of like a career as a lawyer. Um, so, people like Amazon and Google, even TJX, any of these big companies, they really tend to have large um, legal teams, but they hire outside firms, which they refer to us as outside counsel. They're sort of in-house counsel. We're outside counsel. They hire us for our expertise in sort of these complex deals. So a lot of times the in-house lawyers will kind of manage these big deals, but they also tend to focus on the day-to-day work, legal issues that come up with their business teams. So somebody may come to them and say, like, even with COVID, it's really interesting. There Every county with COVID has had their own regulations and rules around opening up stores and businesses. And so the legal team during this time, like, had to coordinate every single store and where they were to determine whether or not they could open, what the capacity was, how many hours they could open. And so a bunch of their lawyers that ended up kind of getting slower, like let's say on the litigation side, because during COVID there wasn't as many lawsuits, and on the even technology side or sales side, they all became sort of regulatory and compliance lawyers. So it's, they kind of, the in-house lawyers are a little bit more generalist in that they help wherever they need you to. And then I, as outside counsel, kind of support them in those bigger transactions.
And someone just private messaged me, how has your career changed because of COVID? And I'm guessing like I know you probably get more business since a lot of companies have been trying to develop their online presence. So if you could just talk about like maybe like, oh yeah, like we've increased like our clientele by 20% or just like something like that.
So that's actually a really good question too. It's very practice dependent. So for example, bankruptcy is becoming super busy right now because you see a lot of companies going bankrupt. Litigation got really slow because people had different priorities. They didn't want to necessarily spend their money and their resources on bringing claims against other companies or people. My area we were slow at first, and now we're getting really busy because companies are sort of reprioritizing their own internal projects. One of the things that people noticed during COVID is that when everybody started moving to be online and work from home, their systems weren't very stable. So now they're maybe focusing on different kinds of projects and prioritizing, improving the resiliency of their solutions and of their infrastructure. So yeah, so it's definitely changed. And I think even from a non sort of legal standpoint, the relationship that I have with some of my clients has changed too, because a lot of them are not in Chicago. So I tend to work, I'm on the phone a lot. And because everyone's moved to Zoom, it's kind of interesting, like we just all put our videos on now. And so, clients see my messy office, which I didn't need you guys to see my messy office, but clients now see my messy office. I don't worry necessarily about dressing up to see them. They're in their own sweats. You see their dogs coming in, their kids coming in. So I think it's like kind of changed the dynamic just in general in business and working with different, people in your career.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks like we have another question that I just got messaged. I know you kind of talked about this a little, but could you talk more about how you made the jump from getting your degree in electrical engineering to kind of deciding to go to law school right after that?
Yeah, it was a little bit arbitrary because I as I said, I felt like I didn't want to be an engineer after, when I was a junior or senior. But I didn't want to lose my technical background. I wanted to be able to use it. So I was kind of trying to come up with something that could combine technology and humanities, I guess. And then when I kind of learned about what patent law was, I thought that was a great way that I could kind of combine my technical background with something that was a little bit more, people oriented and people facing. And so that's kind of how I ended up in law school.
And then I have a personal question. So I know you work with patents and all. I watch this law show, if you know Drop Dead Diva. I love it. But
I don't know that one.
it's like a comedy, but there are lawyers. So basically, her friend opens up a shop and she has this like cake and pie thing. And there's this guy who's like, oh, this is a great idea. Like, how'd you make it? Taking all these notes, and then he sues her. That's like a patent shark, right? Do you ever like encounter that?
So there's something called patent trolls.
Yeah, patent troll. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, and I'm a little bit removed from the patent world. But when I was working as a patent attorney, we saw patent trolls all the time. And it's really a problem for bigger companies because I don't know if you've heard the term deep pockets. But
where they go
yeah,
after people who are making a lot.
so deep pockets are those companies then or people that are known to have a lot of money. And so what patent trolls do is they will take, a patent of theirs, even if it's not either valid or if it's not even that strong of a patent, and they'll bring a lawsuit because it's cheaper for companies to settle for a small amount than it is to litigate the case and win it. So a patent, like a really complex patent lawsuit, just the legal fees themselves can be $2 million from start to finish. They tend to be very expensive. There's a lot of experts, a lot of documents, a lot of motions, and they take a long time, and so they're very expensive. And so if a patent troll is bringing, a claim for one of their patents or suing on one of their patents and suing 20 people, and they can get, $10,000 from each of those people really easily, then, it's they do that. So it's a problem. There's been some legislation to help limit that, but it's still definitely a problem.
Yeah, and just to tell everyone, the person who made it like did win. The patent troll lost. But
Good.
I really liked the episode. It was like stupid. They don't do this in court, but it was like, okay, make the cake. It was like a pie cake. It was really stupid. But then the patent troll made it was like trash, and they're like, okay, like clearly we know who
Yeah.
it belongs to. But like, I'm just curious, like, I mean, judges know that like they are patent trolls and automatically side with the like whoever like
They do know, but the problem is a lot of these cases are actually legitimate, or sufficiently legitimate that they don't just get thrown out of court. So they kind of have to go through the process of either litigating it to get it, to win or settle. So there's something called forum shopping, which is when a litigant, like a patent troll, will decide what state or what court to bring a lawsuit in because they know that judge might be more favorable to, or to the patent owner, even if they are a troll, than the big companies. So there's a lot of that going around too. So there's a lot of strategy around some of these cases, and it's not necessarily all about the law.
Thank you. And then I have a question. Did you have a lot of female role models when you transferred into law? Like I know you went from electrical engineering. Who like guided you through that transition?
From engineering to law, I didn't really have anybody. I did have a professor in law school, in undergrad, who begged me not to go to law school. He's like, you can be one of my, grad students. He was like a really good mentor and friend to me in college. But making the transition, I just kind of, again, it was just, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it just felt like a good degree to have. Because there's so many things that you can do with a law degree besides practicing law. So I was like, well, you know what, it's 3 years. I'll see what it's about, and I'll do this. In engineering, I was back then, and I know there's still more men than women, but the ratio I think is a little bit closer. When I went into engineering, and I was just looking this up recently, the class of 1994 engineering, the engineering school had graduated with, I think, 750 women and over 4,000 men. So it was, and that was engineering in general. So there are different areas of engineering that have more women. Electrical engineering was probably half that. I was definitely, I had plenty of classes where I was the only woman, or one of 2 or 3 women. But when I was in school, so when I was in college, I was involved in Society for Women Engineers. So I kind of found my other female engineering friends. My first roommate was also in electrical engineering, and we're still to this day, we're friends on Facebook, and we kind of email and message back and forth, and that was a long time ago. so I definitely developed a lot of good connections along the way. And as far as mentors at each of my firms, I've definitely had really good mentors, not necessarily all women, but like I'm trying to think. I think in tech and sourcing, which is the area that I'm in, it's still pretty heavily male dominated. But interestingly, a lot of my clients on the tech side, the people that I work with I have teams that are all women, which is kind of fun. So we actually just did my group just did a pitch to a big client last week. And we put together a team. It was all women. So we had a big Zoom for this new potential client. There were 8 of us, I think, on the Zoom, and it was all women, and we were talking about technology law, and it was great.
Yeah, that's super cool. We have another question. Someone wants to know, what's the biggest risk you've taken?
I'm very risk averse, so I don't take too many risks. But I think probably going to law school was one of them, because it was then that when I finally made the decision to go to law school, I knew I wasn't going, and knowing that I wasn't going to continue on in engineering, like I knew I was going to kind of lose that ongoing knowledge and learning of sort of innovative, pioneering things. And even now, my kids want me to, maybe help them with math, and I don't remember any of it. So I knew that was going to be like a turning point. So that was a pretty big risk. I think, even every time I switched jobs, to me, that felt like a risk, because I always had good experiences with the different firms that I was at. And so for me, it's like the not knowing is always a risk to me, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, so I was just thinking about, like, again, law. I'm really into the show. But I know that you're probably more in the civil court. Have you ever done any like criminal cases, or like heard about them, and like what, I don't know, like what is it in
Yeah.
that?
You know what? I'm not, because I'm a transactional lawyer, I'm not in court ever.
Oh, okay.
Even when I was doing patent litigation, 95% of patent cases are pre-litigation or pre-trial. Um, and so a lot of it is motions and writing and research. And I was a new attorney, so I was kind of given the grunt work on that stuff. So I've really only been to court a couple times. In terms of criminal law, I do some pro bono work, which is free legal work for underprivileged people that can't afford lawyers. And one of the projects that I work on is through the Cabrini Green Legal Aid Clinic, and they hold these clinics for people that are looking to expunge or seal their criminal records. So while it's not necessarily like criminal law, I'm sort of it's really interesting to be able to help. I mean, there are criminal aspects to it, obviously. So in terms of my experience, like that's my criminal law experience, and it's it's um, it's interesting to see. One of the things that I find interesting is how many hurdles it takes, and how much documentation, and how many sort of you know, detailed information that you need to provide for the court in order to seal or expunge a criminal record, even for minor crimes that, or even for arrests that didn't end up in a conviction. So it's kind of, I like doing it because it helps people. I mean, there are people who can't get jobs or can't get housing or can't even, get into education programs because they have a criminal record. So, so I like, it's one of the things I enjoy doing on the side, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds like really, really great work. I just had a question kind of following up on that. I thought it was interesting that you said that you're never really in court, which I wouldn't have thought of. So like with COVID and everything, since everyone's at home, has the transition been nice because you were never, I mean, you were in the office, but you weren't really going to court. So is it kind of easier?
Well, interestingly, I actually work primarily from home anyway. It's just an arrangement that I had made when I started at my firm because my kids were really little and I wanted to be home. And so it was a pretty smooth transition for me. And it's a lot of what I do, and with technology now, being able to share screens and negotiate with someone live and make changes to a contract live, it's almost as effective and efficient as if you were face to face. So for me, the transition was pretty seamless.
And then I know since we're coming up to the end, what is the final piece of advice you'd like to give to these wonderful girls who came out on their Saturday? And thank you again for everyone who is here.
I don't know, my final advice, I think, is to trust in your in yourself. I know women tend to doubt maybe their opinions on things, and I think, it's something that I always struggled with as a woman, and as a younger, as a girl, I always kind of struggled with the insecurity. But I so I think that's probably the biggest thing that I would encourage like young women to focus on, and um, trust in yourself, and do what you can to gain the confidence that you need, and find a mentor to help you do that, because there are women mentors or male mentors out there that can really help with whatever it is you're interested in, and help educate you in what you're doing to help you gain that confidence that you all are entitled to have. And so
Thank you. Like I learned so much personally. Like I really wanted to know about like being a lawyer, and I know like Ruth Bader Ginsburg just died, and I'm like, wow, like this world, like things are falling apart, and I'm like, maybe like law is a go-to, because again, like you said, you did electrical engineering as undergrad, so you don't have to do like English or philosophy or economics.
You can do anything you want and be a lawyer. And in fact, I think you're better off with something less traditional. Like a lot of kids that go to law school major in philosophy or poli-sci or economics even. I think one of the advantages that I have is that I am well-rounded, and I do have sort of a different focus, and especially in math and science. I think a math, like a more of a math and science kind of degree and education helps you think like it helps you think like a lawyer, because it helps you be much more analytical, and it's I think can really benefit anyone like as a lawyer. And even not being in court, if there are interesting things like what I do, one of the things I work with clients on is implementing artificial intelligence into their businesses and their business processes to help things run more efficiently. And there's some really interesting things in that area that kind of like ethical questions and questions of inherent biases that you can, also without being in court, help make policies or, create policies or require your vendors to ensure that technology is being used fairly and not uh, furthering biases that you might otherwise see in business.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to say thank you everyone for coming. We do have a session at 4:10. It is our college panel. So please come if you have any questions about what is it like in business school, like what do I need on my resume in order to be a strong candidate for business school. Please go check that out. 4:10. I'm going to pass it over to Jordana.
Yeah, we'd love to see everyone there. Again, thanks so much, Allison, for coming on. We really appreciate it. Super insightful. I learned so much about law.
And feel free to reach out with any questions, Jordana. You have my email, and you're more than welcome to pass that along. And if anyone, wants to link in with me, send me a LinkedIn request and just, let me know that you saw me on Women Mean Business, and happy to, answer any questions or give you any other advice I can.